Okay, mate, we're going live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Heiser Says. Let's have a talk to Stuart Bonds. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Heiser Says. Let's have a talk to Stuart Bonds. I'm getting too much audio coming through here from everything that's running. So, Stuart Bonds, he ran for One Nation for the House of Reps down in Hunter in New South Wales, and he seems to have achieved the impossible. He's gotten over 20% of the primary vote, and I thought we'd have a talk to him. So, I'll hand over to Stuart. How you going, mate?
Hey guys, good. Been busy.
So it's all working well. You can see everything. We're communicating now.
Yeah, clear as a bell.
Oh, fantastic! Thanks for taking the time to come and have a bit of a chat. I thought, considering what you've achieved, it'd be pretty good to, share your experience, really.
Yeah, it has been an experience, an ordeal in some extent.
Well, before we go, I'll just show people where Hunter is, so they can, particularly for those overseas that don't really know, because Australia, we're pretty bloody big. So we go down here to New South Wales. So you can see down about, where are we looking? About here, yep. This here's Hunter, where you live. And the electorate.
Correct.
There's Singleton, there's Newcastle there, and it's a great big city there. And then you go down, here's Sydney. And that's not the capital of Australia, contrary to what everyone in the world thinks. But we've got Hunter here. So, tell us a bit, Stuart. Why did you decide to, run in Hunter? Because you're a local boy. I assume you grew up down there?
No, I actually grew up a little bit further up the coast in a little place called Old Bar on the beach. And I moved down there when I was 19, brought a house, brought a farm, and I've been there ever since. So that's, 12, 13 years now I've been in the Hunter. And the Hunter is a strong coal mining community, as well as the power station and the farms and the grapes. We, that's all the upper Hunter, and down around the lake, you got a lot more service sector jobs, but they also feed up into the coal mines as well. So a lot of people drive from down near Newcastle up into the mines, but it is a coal mining valley. That's what we do. Decided to run because the seat has been a Labor seat for 90 years. It's one of the hardest seats in the country. The Nationals have tried to get it numerous times. They've never got close. And I thought it was about time that we threw the cat amongst the pigeons. And so I ran for One Nation, and the cat is firmly amongst the pigeons.
So you've been down there since you were 19. So you always wanted
Correct.
to get into farming, mate, or to get a trade, or what brought you down there? Just the adventure?
No, well, I moved down there, and my ex-partner at the time, she was looking after some cattle that the mining company owned. So we moved onto a 1,000-acre property, and I just thought there's no way that I can go back to living next door to people. And so then I brought my own farm and moved on to it. And I've been working in the coal mines the entire time. Worked for Westtrack, and then for some hire companies. And then I went and did a bit of subcontracting. So now I work full time for a mine now. So I've done that for 7 years now, I think. So yeah, my life's all about mining and farming, and it's very close to my heart, and close to everyone I know's heart. And when the Labor Party took on this super green, super left platform, I thought that I needed to be a weight on the other side of the scale.
Yep. And what's your trade? You're working on the mines. You're a mechanic?
Plant mechanic, yeah.
So the big equipment.
The biggest stuff you can get. Yeah, it's big.
So you decided to, Labor came out with their beautiful policies. Pretty much, they're very anti-coal. We've all seen it. And we now know what the cost of their climate change policies are. It's the election. That's essentially what it is. It's costing the election.
Yeah, it was expensive.
So you decided to run for One Nation, and Hunter...
I did.
I'll bring up the... before we go on the results, I'll bring up the map here. This is the electoral map of Hunter. And it's bloody big. It's, how big... did you went around the whole thing? Meeting all the people, doing all the legwork? You'd have to with the numbers you got.
Look, I didn't get around the whole thing, but I hit the population centres. Up the top, there's a town called Brook. There's Aberdeen's right on the edge, right up the top. There's, what else? Then you come down and there's Singleton in the middle. And then out on the furthest left edge, there's a little town called Denman. And then as you go down, you've got Cessnock, which is a large population centre at Cessnock. Down where you are now is around the Putty region. A lot of that's all national park and stuff. There's down there as well. And then as you get down towards the lake, then you're hitting into about half the electorate lives down along the lake, along Lake Macquarie there. About half the population of the electorate. So it's quite difficult electorate to govern, I guess, because there's no... to represent, I should say, because there's no, there's a complete difference in what people need on the lake compared to up the back at Denman,
Yeah.
And so very difficult. And the money comes from up the top end of town and, flows down into that lake.
Yeah, yep. I mean, that's a really good point. That's the... we don't have it as bad as America. Our electoral areas, the electorates are all roughly about 100,000 people. But you've got a clear challenge here. The people down at the lake, what they want will be different to the people out in the regions. And
Correct.
That's huge, that area. That would have been exhausting going all the way around there. That would have worn you out, mate.
Well, there's 56 voting booths on the day. The area is 10,600 square kilometres, so it is massive. It is massive. And it would be one of the high tax generating electorates in the entire state. It is very industrialised and there is a lot of money comes out of there. And so, there's a lot of industry there that we need to protect. Down around Newcastle, Rutherford, all down around that area, there's a lot of smaller businesses that feed the mines with supplies and repairing pumps and repairing, they say that there's 6 jobs that spin off from every single mining job. And there's about 20,000 miners that are coal miners that are directly employed by the mines in New South Wales. So you're looking at 120,000 plus jobs are supported by these mines. Not to mention the tax revenue that supports everybody else, pay for the schools, hospitals, you name it, pensions, so those mines provide a huge amount of resources for the country in the way of revenue.
So it's been a Labor seat for 100 years, pretty much, and handed down from father to son as a fiefdom. Really, one could say.
Twice now it's been a father-son combo. Yeah, this is the second lot. It's only been held by 5 men in 90 years.
5 men in 90 years. So it wouldn't be too surprising to think that Labor may be getting just a tad complacent with this seat, and not wanting to throw the resources at it. So people who may not be aware, Stuarts achieved an insane result. And we'll have a look right now what you got here. This is a gentleman that's in there at the moment. But this is right from the tally room at AEC. We'll have a look. I just refreshed it. So we'll ignore this bit at the top here, the two-party preferred. So here you are, Stuart. 21.84% swing to your mate. That's insane. That is literally just insane. because seats are won on swings of 1 or 2%. Nationals lost some people. Animal Justice went up, so I'm assuming that's the first time they ran there, or for a while. If they go up 3%, UAP they're just running again. So these two have run. The Greens have lost, not surprising. The CDP have lost, and look at that swing against Labor, 14% against. I mean that is a big swing, and I mean you can. Labor's, Joel's, I heard him say that, it's a protest vote and this and that, but you can't think of, a 21% swing in favour of another party is just a protest vote. This is a big concern of the community coming through and you've managed to rally that many people to vote for you. That's a huge achievement there.
Yeah, well, I rallied them in 55 days and I worked 30 of them, and managed to do it. I started no campaign manager, no volunteers, new Facebook account, and about $12,000, which I didn't have at the time. I had to make as I was going along, and that's why I had to keep working. So, I couldn't afford to have the time off. So there's a lot of things that I would have liked to have done and gone to and stuff, but I just ran out of time.
Wait, mate, you were still working while you were running, were you?
Yeah, 50 hours a week.
Oh, that's good. That's the way you want it. You're counter-establishment there because you don't have a silver spoon giving you the money. That'll probably get you some votes.
Yeah, there was no silver spoon. I'll assure you that much. I looked for it. It wasn't there. I looked for a long time. I spent 2 days looking for Labor's money tree. I went everywhere looking for it. I couldn't find it. Yeah.
So did you actually raise money from people on the ground? Did they want to support you? Is that how it happened?
Oh, look, people chipped in a little bit of money here and there. I had a good mate of mine chucked me $1,000, and like it was good. I would have liked to have got some more money, obviously, but look, really, have a look at that. I didn't need it. I think you need money when you haven't got a good message, right? When you're trying to convince people that you've got a good message, then you need to force it down their throat with money. You hear something, you hear it once, and that's it. You're like, well, that makes sense. I'm doing it. But with all this climate change, socialist crap, you've really got to just keep hammering people with it to make them swallow it, and the Hunter totally rejected the platform that the Labor Party run on. And I don't think it was an endorsement of the Liberals either, because look, people aren't happy with the Libs, and there was a flood of votes come away from the Nationals there as well. So it wasn't only the Labor Party, but yes, it was a protest vote, but we have some awesome policies as well that people really didn't know enough about. That now they've looked into it, they know more about it, and they always give you it's a radical party. Well, they have a look, and they're nowhere near as radical. There's not one radical policy on there. They're as mainstream as you're going to get. So once I got people engaged and they started looking, they fell in love with the party, which is great because that's what I did. So, I keep saying this, I've said this many times that, excuse me, I've said this many times that there's not going to be one of me running next time. There's going to be 50 of me, and we're going to be everywhere. We're going to be all over the country, and we're really going to tap into the local issues. And if the Liberals don't do a good job, then they're both going to be shaken by this, because the protest vote's going to, bleed off from both of them. So they need to do a good job there on notice. And hopefully the fallout from this, people realise that you can make a difference. Like one person can make a difference, and your vote does count. There's a seating down at the moment that's 67 votes. We got 8,000 plus invalid votes in this area. So those votes, they do count. You can make a difference. I'm telling you, if I get down there'll be a big shock put through the system. So, I hope that I can convince people to pay more attention and be more careful with their vote. You're never going to change on if you keep doing the same thing.
Well, my my thing I've been plugging for this election, and I'll bring up the hashtag, is shift the window, where I'd argue we need more sensible people in Parliament to kind of pull us away from this leftward tug that the Greens are pulling Parliament across. I mean, Labor couldn't get in without Greens' preferences. It'd be impossible anymore. And in what seats? The Liberals were chasing them and chasing them. So it's good to see that we're getting more conservative people in the Senate. It'd be really good if you could get up and win this seat as House of Reps, because then, you know, One Nation would be on par with the Greens, with having someone in the House of Reps. It'd be great.
Oh, it'd be a great nut to crack, you know, to get someone in there. They are so hard to win these lower house seats. The big parties have everybody convinced that, you know, it's getting these minor parties in the lower house is not going to do anything. Well, I'll tell you what One Nation did do. We shifted the entire platform that the Labor Party's running on, you know, because they know that they can't run on this platform again. So we have knocked this leftward movement, the country going to the left, we have knocked it back to the centre. And I mean, if that is this party's legacy from this election, then we have done the country a great service. We really have. I mean, even if we don't take a seat, what Miss Hanson's been able to do with fielding all these candidates, we have got a senator in Queensland. So congratulations to Malcolm Roberts. We're still hopeful in New South Wales. It's looking good. So, you know, we may get a couple of senators across the line, and we have shifted, and the Labor Party know they cannot run on that platform again. That is just an amazing accomplishment, absolutely amazing accomplishment. If we weren't there, now I doubt that the done as well as it did. We really were all over Queensland, and Queensland turned blue. I mean, to look at a map, you'd swear that it was New South Wales. You know, they swear they might win an Origin this year. You know,
mate, we saved the country. Okay, you can send your beer and your checks to Queensland. We saved you from the Victorian bastards, okay? So props for Queenslanders. Thumbs up to all the Queenslanders watching this now, okay? Well, I mean, you ran for One Nation, and you alluded it to before when you were telling people about the policies of the party. And I found that too, that because, I mean, I went through every policy or looked at every party, and a lot of them have common sense ideas. Some of them are a bit funny. But a lot of people won't do that. Yep. They'll just listen to one or two things from the media, and then they'll just build their whole opinion on that. You decided to run with One Nation. How did your friends react or your mates react when you told them that? Did you have to, you know, explain to them what you were doing, or did you introduce them to it? Did they get excited, or were they going, "Oh, bloody hell, mate"? You know, was there any difficulty there?
Look. Not as far as like the party went. I mean, people know me, and you know, I don't hang out with people that don't like me, so they know the kind of bloke that I am. And I mean, they thought that I'd bitten off more than I could chew, and I probably did, to tell you the truth. I didn't really know what was involved, but you know, I did everything that I could do. I could not do anything more than what I did to, you know, to get out there and amongst it. But yeah, they were surprised, and awfully surprised at how well we did too. I mean, they had a suspicion that we'd do well in this area, because I know a lot of people around Singleton, but to cover the entire electorate and do well over the whole thing, I think that's what has everybody shocked, you know, because look, it wasn't just the coal issue, you know, they were running on a full-on high tax to get rid of negative gearing, get rid of the franking credits. You know, it affected everyone throughout the entire electorate. I think we're 18th on the list for the investment property owners in this area. So, I mean, when they were talking about the negative gearing, people knew that their housing prices were going to be affected. You know, it was going to happen, because the next person that's buying the house can't factor in the fact that they're going to get a tax break from it. So they're going to have to increase the rent, which you can't really do. to that extent, or they're going to have to demand a lower price. So the Party just totally misread the entire field. Absolutely, the best thing they could have did was said nothing. Like, just disappeared, not said anything, come back, they would have won the election. But the more they talk, the more trouble they got themselves in.
I think that's the strategy our current Premier in Queensland used. When they pushed out Campbell, she pretty much just said nothing and got in. That's the real feeling that that I have. That's because Shorten pretty much lost an unlosable election the way he did. And you raised some points there about just when you argue with idiots on Facebook, they're all going, "Oh, franking credits is only for the rich," or that, and a lot of it's mum and dads, and a lot of it's small-time investors that are taking advantage of these things, and they want to.
They're put in place for a reason, and I mean, you can debate whether they should have been put in place in the first place or not. But there's better and worse times to knock these things out, and I would argue that when the house prices were accelerating into the stratosphere, instead of the government jumping on board and saying, "This is fantastic, look how good the government is for you," and encouraging the fanatical bubbles to explode and not doing anything to slow it down. And the Reserve Bank, look, they got some answers, they're going to have to answer some questions coming up, because we've had a huge housing crash and nobody mentioned it in the entire election. They only did that because there's no votes in it. And they both know that they're both responsible for pumping this bubble up. Rudd and Gillard, and then right through the last 50 Liberal blokes that were in there, they've all played their part in blowing this bubble up. And so, look, hopefully some attention gets paid to it coming up. I mean, but as I said, you don't want to go cutting this tax, the tax break, the negative gearing break, when the housing prices are coming off the burn. I'm telling you, this could add 5 to 8, even 10% drops in some areas if they did that. So,
well, yeah, I was talking to a friend today, and he was happy that with the result that we got from a business perspective. And I'm going, it's still times may still be tough, but it means you're going to have to tell your staff, okay, I'm going to have to cut you down to 4 days per the next few months. Not, I've got to fire 3 of you because we're going under. I mean, it would have been interesting if they had looked at ways to kind of phase it out over time, not just boom, get rid of it and going, here's a 5-year plan, something a bit more nuanced and a bit smarter. But, I get the feeling they were too just tightened up in their idea and their class struggle. And I think they thought they had the young vote, but I don't think they're falling for it.
Look, they tried to move maybe 20 years worth of policies through in one election. You just can't do that. The economy just won't handle it. You will destroy, like we're down at about a 1% interest rate with the Reserve Bank. 1 or 1.5. It doesn't matter. It's the lowest that it's ever been. And to go and implement these things when your interest rate is that low, that tells you that there's a problem. You don't have low interest rates if everything's booming. You have them when there's a problem. And so to go implementing these, radical policies, like, trying to get people driving, selling 50% of the cars to be sold are going to be electric. And I ran through a whole election campaign and asked the Labor candidate to explain the zero carbon policy. Like, what is it? What does a zero carbon policy even look like? Or zero carbon economy? Like, are we all driving electric cars? Do we have dump trucks? Like, what are those? What carts of minerals around? Do we totally shut down the mines? Do we keep them open? Like, is it just a bit of a behind the curtain thing where all you're doing is paying the United Nations money for carbon credits? So you're still creating the carbon, but you're paying for your sins by paying taxes to the UN. Like, there was no explanation. I can't believe I ran through the whole campaign and I got told that I ran a smear campaign on the Labor Party because I asked some basic questions that my voters wanted me to ask. They wanted the answer to this, and it was clear that they just didn't do enough to explain it to people. They didn't even do enough to explain it to me, and I ran in the campaign.
Well, see, the thing is, they probably didn't realise you were a threat. That was the thing. So, they've learned that lesson.
Well, if he had to spend some time in the electorate, he probably would have known. But he wasn't here because they've won it so easily every time. And I suppose he was smart enough to know, Mr. Fitzgibbon, he is a smart man, and he would have known that, look, this platform is very progressive and left-wing, and look, I don't want to get caught down the street and ask questions about coal. So if I get out of here and they get me out of here, and I'm in Rockhampton and I'm in these marginal seats, right, where it's going to be high profile. Look, Joel Fitzgibbon's in town.
What they had him doing?
Known that there was a problem.
They had him doing the tour in Queensland.
Oh, they had him in Queensland. They had him in Tasmania. He's a shadow minister for agriculture. He's up there, man. He's 22 years. Right, he's a veteran. He knows what he's doing. He's a very intelligent man. I'll take nothing away from the guy politically. I don't agree with him ideologically, but politically, the man is brilliant. And to hear him speak, you can ask him a question about mining, and all of a sudden you're talking about defence, and you're like, hang on a second, wait a second. Can we just start talking about it? He's brilliant at it. It's a learned art. But the thing is, bring it back. He didn't answer the question, and we may break rocks for a living and dig them up and chip them out and burn them, but we aren't stupid. Right? We know when people are trying to dodge questions. And he just did not do a good enough job. He still has plenty of time to come out and explain the policy to us right now. Explain what it was going to mean, but they won't do it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the problem is that they're leaning towards winning votes in the city electorates, and it conflicts with the rural electorates. Yeah. They're under attack from the Greens, and they're going to lose the inner city base there. So they're sacrificing, their traditional working base as well. So
they thought they could get away when they did their polls, and the climate polled really highly, and they looked at the margins, and they just went, you know what, we can lose the margin on that seat, we can gain a few more seats in the city, and we'll just run the risk. And they ran the risk, and it didn't pay off. They turned back on their base, right? It just didn't work. You can't do that. People in this electorate's money has been funneled into the Labor Party via the union dues, via donations, by people's time and effort. We have supported the Labor Party, right, for 90 years. And the moment that coal becomes a bit unpopular, bang, we'll just turn their back on those people, because then we're not going to win an election with those people. Well, I'll tell you what, this issue cost them the election. It cost them the election. And now they're somehow going to have to win the trust of their voters back. I work in a mine. I know how hard it is to change their mind about little things, about their roster or crib times. Trying to convince people to change a political party is nearly impossible. And for us to pull that off in this area just shows you how discontented people are, how angry they are.
Yeah, no, you raise a good point there. Getting someone to change their crib time or their roster, even that's a struggle, let alone politics. And particularly if people don't want to talk about it. I know everyone's a keyboard warrior on bloody Facebook, but the number of people that won't actually want to discuss politics, that's not polite, or I want to keep friends, and it can be challenging. I mean, you've got.
I want to keep my job, and so does everybody. I want everyone else to keep their jobs.
Oh, that's what you're fighting for, fundamentally. Exactly. you got a political ideology that wants to get out of coal for some reason, even though it won't make any difference to the planet, it won't make any difference to the environment, it'll just cost jobs. And I mean,
I argue that it'll be worse for the planet, mate, because we have some of the highest quality coal in the world comes out of the Hunter Valley. And I tell you, there are 1 billion people around the world that do not have electricity. They do not have it. So those people deserve to join, have a chance at joining the first world. And the only way that we can do that is to give them electricity, right? And we know that there is a high population problem in areas that have poverty, and that's because their kids die, right? And they need kids to carry them because they don't have a welfare state, right? So the only way that we can help with this population crisis is to help lift these people out of poverty. And to do that, we need to give them power. And to do that, we're going to need coal because it is the cheapest and most thing that we have. I wish that we could just send them all a solar panel, pat them on the back, and it'd be all right, but that's not the way that it is. We're going to need to help these people, and the best way we can do it is help them industrialise. And the best way we can do that is get them electricity. These people deserve, we cannot say, oh, look, we're really looking after you by not giving you electricity because the climate might kill you in 100 years. Right? It's ridiculous. These people are starving. Their children are dying. Right? These people are living under sheets of tin. Right? They deserve the sympathy. You cannot be a city greenie snob and just ignore these people.
Stu, you don't know how it works, mate. You know, the greenies, they need to feel good, so they need to keep them all down. You know, virtue signal about them. You know, when
yeah, well, it's not working.
You look at, you know, capitalism brought more people out of poverty in the last decade than in the last 100 years. It's insane, and these things aren't really reported in the mainstream media. They've got their whole agenda, but you know, things are getting better. And you're right, something as simple as getting power, getting coal to people in remote parts of the world, that changes their whole lives. We're real, you know, we're spoiled here with our first world problems. You know. Well, mate,
yeah. Oh, big time, big time. I mean, just traveling. I mean, we did a big trip around the world just last year when my daughter was 8 months old, and we went to a lot of these countries. You know, we went to Egypt, and Egypt is one of the richer countries in Africa, North Africa, and the poverty is just indescribable. And then, you know, we went over to Israel and went through Palestine, and I went through and had a look at Jordan, and it's, you know, and then we did a trip right through Southeast Asia, and the level of poverty is just disturbing. And so if we could do anything, you know, send them this product, send them the coal, you know, and because I'll tell you, if they find it, they'll find the brown coal, they'll find anything they can, and they'll burn it. They burn all their rubbish out in the street. You know, when we were in Hanoi walking around, they have big furnaces just outside their houses in the middle of the city. They just throw all the rubbish in and burn it.
That's
you know?
That's what,
like,
what
I would argue.
That's what we saw when we went to Vanuatu. I was a bit taken aback where they're just chucking it on the side, and not even a furnace, just burning it there. And I mean, it all came out on 60 Minutes, all our recycling getting shipped over to Malaysia, and it just all getting burnt as well.
Yeah, so I would argue if these climate scientists spent a lot more time focusing on what we can do with that plastic, a product we can make with it. Can we make it into like a giant Lego block and try and make walls out of it for a house and then cover it in tin? You know, what can we do with this stuff? That's a real problem. It's everywhere. It's throughout the oceans. We've got no answer for it, and here we are concerned. If we listened to Al Gore, we'd be under 6 foot of water right now. There's no waterfront properties left. All the polar bears are dead. There's no Arctic ice. Yet here we are, still in the same position that we were, and we've changed the language from global warming to climate change. Right? That was deliberate because we weren't getting the warming that was predicted by the Gore. So he has done the planet a huge injustice by doing what he did, because now it's proving to be either nowhere near as dramatic or it's not happening at all. And people are now calling bullshit on it, you know, and I'm one of them.
No, you're right there. I actually think it's getting better, to be honest, in the last 30 years with regard to the environment. You know, the world's a lot cleaner. Even our vehicles are emitting less pollution than they used to, you know, back in the 80s, back in the 90s.
And look, I'm arguing that we should stop this green movement. Not at all, right? But we should not phase things out. Like the coal, there are clean coal-fired power stations that we can build. Now we should build them, and we should shut the other ones down, right? When they're finished their working life. We should update, upgrade. We should be recycling. We should be figuring out what we can do with the plastics. We should be figuring out what we can do with old tires. I 100% agree with all of that sort of stuff. We need to focus more on it, but we cannot destroy our economy on this ideology. You can't do it. The sacrifice is too great. The damage will be just enormous, and we will not recover from it. We will not come out of the hole.
I'd argue it would have a negative impact on the environment, because technological innovation, anything we try and do now to address it, will be obsolete in 50 years' time with how more advanced our civilization can achieve. But also, I find that a lot of the people who were terrified at the coming climate apocalypse, I think they don't have a truly world-scale understanding, because you try and do something good here, but it won't. Say we ban coal in Australia, and then they try and start India for the Adani. They have to source their coal from another country that has worse production, worse quality of life, worse working conditions, and it's a less quality coal. That's going to be a net negative for the environment. Then our quality of life here is going to decrease. People will waste more, and they don't have that big global understanding that they think they do.
Yeah.
They've just got a little pinhole view.
The stats, there's currently 8.2 billion tonnes of coal mined every year. That is set to peak at about 8.6 billion tonnes, and then it starts to peter off. So we're not going to be back at this coal production level until about 2050 or 2060, around that level, and then it'll keep petering off after that. But that is a long time. You can start work and you retire in that period of time. You can start up a brand new 30-year coal project in that time and finish it off. I mean, it's insane that we would move in this direction, regardless of what everybody else does. You got to compete. You have to be able to compete on a global market with your products. I mean, if your electricity goes up, you make anything at the same price that other people can make it. It just doesn't make any sense. And no one's got any money then. If 35% of your export, right, is coal, where's your money going to come from? What, are you just going to print it? Then you're going to have inflation and just... you're just ongoing disaster after disaster.
Stuart, they'll get it right this time. They'll get it. It'll work this time. They'll print more money. It'll work. It'll work this time. Yep, this time it'll work.
Learned lessons from Venezuela. We'll get it right this time.
Yep. Yeah. No. Guaranteed. So you were attacked in the media, shall we say, for a lot of things, and one thing I think is quite funny. Where pretty much, I'd say they fit shamed you. Here's a picture of you're tattooed, healthy looking bloke. They were fit shaming you, and the other bloke here, they're fit shaming him as well, running for One Nation.
So a good looking rooster.
I mean, okay, do you have to be cut to run for One Nation? Is Pauline getting blokes that can bench press 100, 200 in? Because if we got some other guys here that are thinking of running, you need to hit the gym.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we get a few more along the line, we can get a calendar going. I think a One Nation calendar.
So, that didn't affect you at all, did it? These type of things. It's just them clutching at straws.
Mate, look, what do you need to look to be a politician now? It's just ridiculous. They'll clutch at anything because they don't want normal people in there. If you haven't worked your way up and gone to a certain college and done certain uni degrees and become a lawyer and become a union boss, if you haven't worked your way up through the ranks, right, you haven't earned the right to be there. Well, I'm sorry, but it's a House of Representatives, and your job is to represent the people of your area, and they will pick the best person to represent that area. You don't get to tell them, the people of the area, to represent your agenda. That's just not on, and the moment people realise that this is possible, the whole political game changes, because you can't run these people anymore. People will see straight through them. All it needs is some good, genuine people to front up, like Miss Hanson. We need more of her, and this whole charade will just fall apart.
So, I mean, it's been a tough run. It's been exhausting for you. You've come through it now. It's looking like you may, if preferences flow your way, you may have a shot. If pre-polling flows your way, if preferences go your way, you could have a shot to get up, and that'd be a great achievement. What advice would you give someone else?
Mathematically, yeah. Look, mathematically, it's possible that we can get over the line. I think there's 14 odd thousand votes that need to be distributed via the preference system. And one thing that I do know is that people are totally unpredictable. Even a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, I sent him a how to vote card, a picture, because he asked for it. And then his picture of his voting thing that said, I just voted for you. And he picked me first and preferenced the Socialist Equality Party and then Palmer.
Well, that's just
and I was like, man, and this is a friend of mine, right? So to think that you're going to be able to predict where these things are going to go is just insane. So I mean, you can go off what happened in previous elections, but every electorate is different. And mate, you could drive from one polling booth to the next one, and at one I was polling really well, and the next one I was not doing as well. So different strokes for different folks, mate. And so I'm not ruling anything out. It'd be a mistake to walk away from it at this point, and it'd also be a mistake for Mr. Fitzgibbon to claim that he's won. I mean, he's making some leadership, shouting out at taking over the leadership as a possibility, and his seat's not secure. It'll be quite embarrassing if he's done all this and then he loses his seat.
So he's running, or he might be running for leadership. Oh, that'd be funny. That'd be really funny, and he loses his seat.
Well, look,
I
know. But look, to be honest, the Labor platform would have been better if it ran on a Mr. Fitzgibbon platform, right? Like, I don't like the guy. I think he's got his nose in the trough. I don't like the guy politically. I think he's got his nose in the trough. Personally, he's all right. But I just, I think he's down there. I think he'll probably retire after this. I'm not sure. So I think he wants to have one last stab. And if we were to have ran on his platform, he wouldn't have done this progressive crap. It would be safer if the party moved back towards the centre. If they listen to Fitzgibbon, they don't have to put him in charge. But if they don't listen to him, the Labor Party is going to be absolutely decimated next time, right? Because they've got the point. They haven't listened to anybody. They're not representing people anymore. They've become a Marxist ideological party, and they are going to be crucified in the polls next time. Absolutely crucified. The Labor Party won't get in for another 20 years if they don't come back to a sensible centre.
I thought part of me wanted Palaszczuk to win the leadership just because it'd be 3 years of memes and great content for YouTube. If she got in, and sometimes we want to watch it burn, but that's not going to help the nation. We need a Labor Party that can actually have conversations. That don't say on election night, the Australian people are just too dumb to understand our policies. That's paraphrasing what she said, but that's how it came across to me as watching her opinion at the end. If we had had more time to explain the policies, I think a lot of people knew the policies. I think a lot of people knew exactly what they might have voted for. So, I mean, before we open it up to questions, from the audience. And guys, if you have any questions or something you'd like to share, you can use Facebook, YouTube, or this hashtag on Twitter, and I'll moderate them, and Stuart will try and answer your questions, or I'll try and answer your questions. What advice would you give for a young bloke that is inspired to give it a shot like you?
Do it. Just do it. there's a big difference between people that are successful in life and that are unsuccessful, and that is successful people do things. They don't just talk about it. They actually go and they do something. If they say they're going to build a house, they go and they build a house. If they say they're going to open a company, they open the company. All right? And just even moving in that direction generates success. That success is contagious, and it just takes off from there, and you end up just kicking goals all over the place. And then you end up kicking goals in other areas of your life too, because it's a positive pyramid, you know. It just continues to add up and add up and add up. And you know, there's those people you look and you go, God, that guy's so lucky. Well, he's not lucky. Guy probably worked for 20 years of his life, worked his ass off. And so yeah, now he's successful. You know, it takes a lot of hard work. This was not easy. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. You know, so but rewarding, yeah, extremely rewarding to see this, to put the Hunter back on the map. It's been one of the most proudest moments of my life, you know. So do it, and don't expect to be as successful as I was, because it probably won't happen. You know, it might be a one-off, but you can make a difference. You know, look at these other minor parties. Just them running with a 2 or 3% vote, they are going to matter. Those people are what's going to matter at the end of the day. The Christian Democrats, even this socialist mob with their 500 votes, where those guys' preferences go can influence the entire election. So just, guys, get in and do it. You know, this is open to everybody. It was designed like that. But mentally it's been beaten out of people that don't believe that they can do it. You can do it, you know, and you should do it. And if you like our platform, next time, next election, next round, apply, you know, line up. You'll get the questions, and if you can front up and you can do it, then the guys will put you on. They'll give you a go. I mean, we need more people. We need more people to run to shake this system up if we want to do it, if we want to get somewhere.
I think a lot of people don't appreciate how preferencing works, and some people are still afraid they're going to waste their vote, when preferencing is really our superpower that we all have here in Australia that we can all use. So, you know, good on you, mate. Now we're having some questions coming through, and here we go. This is from Side Olia. What do you do for a living? I think you may have come in a bit late.
I'm a plant mechanic, mate, in a mine. I've been doing it for in the same mine now for six for the same company for about 6 years, and I also run a cattle farm, cattle property. Yeah.
How many cattle do you run?
Oh, it's only a hobby farm, like 20, 25 sometimes when the feed's good, when we're not in drought. Yeah, the droughts hit us pretty hard. It's not always the most profitable business, farming, and that's why you need to have a subsidiary income, you know, because the land's expensive and you don't make anything off it. So, yep. Unfortunately, farming's a dying profession in our country.
I'm just tempted to get some nice beef, you know. Here's one from Rachel. When do you expect the count to be finished?
Okay, so this gets complicated because there's out of area votes, there's postal votes, there's nursing home votes, there's ones that come from hospitals, and they are all put in individual envelopes and they are sealed and they are posted back. So they now 13 days, I believe it is, for all of those votes to be returned, and they have to all be scanned in. And then once they're scanned in, and they're all counted, then they can begin the preferencing. Because you can't start preferencing until you know who's come, you know, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth at the start. Otherwise, there could be a couple of votes in it, and those votes come in late, and then you shouldn't have counted that party off. So it can change the entire way the preferencing is counted. So, yeah, we've got to wait. So it's 13 days, and then it could even, if it's that close, it could go to a recount. I think 100 votes triggers a recount. So look, you could be looking at a couple of weeks, yeah, possible.
So we've got one from Emma on Facebook. Stuart Bonds for PM. And then we've got another one, the kind of a follow-on to that one, from Rachel again. And I am favouring my wife, sorry guys, or I'll get in trouble. If you're not successful, will you go again?
Yeah, I think I will. You know, unless there is someone else that steps up that's running on the same platform, and I believe that they can pull it off. I mean, I always said, like, if I could subcontract this job out with a vote, and that's what your vote is, you were paying for someone to be a punching bag for you, you know, with a vote. You're paying them with a vote. And if there is someone there that's really competent in your area and is running on the same platform, I mean, if there was someone here, I wouldn't have run. I would have just voted for it because it's expensive, it's time away from your family, and it's so different, you know, and you do just become a punching bag for people, and it doesn't really affect me. I'm pretty thick-skinned, you know. I live out in the bush, mate, and I don't see anybody. But yeah, it's pretty tough going at times.
Here's one from Anxious Aussie Commentary on Twitter. So do you think it would have gone better if the parties focused more on the majors and less on condemning each other? So I mean, you copped a lot in the media, and I mean, you weren't going around. You were accused of doing a smear campaign by Labor just by asking questions. So, and they didn't respond to you.
Yeah, they weren't real responsive. Look, I mean, they totally underestimated me right from the very start, and that cost them dearly. They were slinging mud at each other, and the whole time I was working. I was getting volunteers, I was getting people on the ground, I was getting pamphlets chopped out by hand because I couldn't afford to get them, you know, distributed by the mail. And and the whole time there was this storm just brewing right underneath them the entire time. And then once they realized that it was there, they didn't want to draw attention to it, right? So, because, I mean, if they point it out, you know, people are like, huh? And they don't know about it. They look and they're like, oh, geez, look at all these people that are supporting this minor party running in this area. So it's kind of, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't in that area. So, but they didn't cotton on early enough for what was going on. And that was because they didn't pay enough attention to the people they're representing. They would have known immediately what was going to happen if they had looked. But, you know, that's arrogance for you, man. It gets you every time. You underestimate people. That's what happens.
Now, here's one from Vareen. What ambitions do you wish to see Australia achieve in the future?
Yeah, well, I really want to see us invest some money into the inland of Australia. Like, I would love to see, Pauline's been trying to push for this Bradfield water scheme to be built to get some much needed water to the farmers that are suffering on the inside of New South Wales. Been forgotten. That's money has been, these people, while things are all good, the government will just reach in and take 50% of everything that they make because they're making a good dollar in the good times. And then when the droughts come, you know, what do they get? Measly few bales of hay, you know, they get a drought payment. I mean, the suicides and stuff that happen out there at times like this are just horrendous. And the thing that we can do, we've got a recession coming up. I know it's coming. They know it's coming as well. We can either, you know, throw the money into the wind, or we can come away with building some nation building projects like this. We can why don't we have a high-speed rail network that links Brisbane to Melbourne? We have the 5th busiest air corridor in the world, Sydney to Melbourne, 5th busiest in the world. We can afford to build this train, and we should. It should be something else we should walk away from this recession with. I mean, I want to see some big stuff happen. I mean, the last big thing to be built here was the Harbour Bridge. They did that with horse and carts. You know, we can do better. We can and we should. We haven't built a dam in 40 years. You know, most places on earth. Like, what are we doing? We can build some hydro dams. Like, I don't understand why we've gone away. We've turned into a welfare culture. bulk of our money for taxes goes into welfare. We need to spend that money on infrastructure. The best welfare you can give someone is a job.
Yeah, mate, I agree with you there. We've got one here from Kelly. She asked from Facebook, have you slept yet, mate, since Saturday?
Yeah, I had to go to the doctors on Monday and get some antibiotics. I had some green stuff coming out of my head that was it was disgusting. And it's cleared up now. I've still got a bit of a cough, but I have slept. I got a good night's sleep last night. But I mean, I've done 30 newspaper interviews, a few for the television, and so on and so on and so on. And it's just, I'm exhausted. I've had enough. I need a break, but I can't stop. I mean, look, this is why I did this. I did this to get the Hunter back into the news, back onto the political sphere, because we've been used and abused by the political class, for so long. And so this is our time in the sunshine, and I'm going to make sure that when this is over and done with, people don't forget what's happened here.
Here's one from Enmity. What's Pauline like?
Amazing. She is an absolutely beautiful person. She really is. I've talked to her a few times now, and she gave me a call the other night. She's been a bit sick herself, so she's keeping herself away a bit till she gets better, I think. And she is the hardest working person that I think I've seen. She's everywhere all the time. Running these parties is extremely difficult, and especially when you're not getting the big donations from the unions and the banks, and you have people trying to destroy you constantly. They do not want One Nation to exist, and so often the media is biased against her. And look, if you ever have the chance to meet her, go and meet her. Don't trust what the media says about this woman. She has taken more bullets for this country than virtually anybody. She is an incredible person. Her story is incredible. So they even sent her to prison, falsely accused, destroyed her party, and she rebuilt it again from the ground up. It just is an incredible story what this woman's done, and she is the main reason I ran for this party. She has shouldered the weight of all of this for so long that I felt that I needed to take a little bit of the burden off her. And I hope that I've done that, I hope going forward I can do it a little bit more for her.
Here's one from Uncommon Sense. Do you think the fractured conservative minor parties could ever consolidate into a viable third major party? I mean, because we look here, is that, you reckon it's possible or a pipe dream?
It's too many differences in the ideologies of the minor parties. And I mean, look, the Australian Conservatives didn't get back in. Palmer's gone. I mean, I don't think Palmer will run again. So look, you've got these minor parties are dropping off. Like we are the legitimate third party. It's us. Once we go away, I mean, look at what Palmer did. He spent all that money, just couldn't crack the nut. He just couldn't get in there. Couldn't even get back into the Senate. So, I mean, unfortunately for the country, I believe it's going to be very difficult for another minor party to come up like One Nation. I would encourage people to join the party and get involved, because it is unique to have a party like this in the country. And we need some more support from the public, and a bit more education. I hope that I can do a little bit more to educate people about the changes that have happened because of One Nation, to try and keep the smaller parties out of it. They don't want a third party. This is a two-party preferred system, and they want to keep it that way. They don't want a third party. But here we are. We're not going anywhere.
No, you've right. Just looking back at One Nation, like 90s, I found their website from the
Oh,
90s and I had a look at it, and uh, how they present themselves today, just in their policy, and even getting Mark Latham on board. I think that was a great coup for the party, and he's given a fantastic opening address in the upper house in New South Wales, and I think that'll flip a few people, get rid of some of the old stigma and the media surrounding the party, because you look at all these minor ones, and I thought I was reading copy paste. All their policies were bloody the same, just all wish fulfillment, and nothing actually behind it. And you just need to make sure they vote for their socialists first, but then they preference you guys second, maybe. Mate, we've got
look, Mark Latham is an awesome addition to this party. He's an absolute powerhouse. You feel the guy's presence when you walk in the room. His speech is one of the greatest speeches to have been read down in Parliament. Encourage everybody to have a look at that speech. Mark Latham's maiden speech that he just done. He got back in. He absolutely incredible. He nailed every issue, that's going on, and that's why he ran. He's seen the problems that were brewing. He could have sat back on his political pension and just lived his days out, but he felt the country was in dire need of his assistance, and he was right. He is a one of a kind. He ran the Labor Party, and to look at the platform that even Mark Latham ran on compared to Bill Shorten Shorten's not half the man Mark Latham is, and so I wish all the best to Mark. He's a great man. He's done a lot for the party so far, and guys, get in and have a look at that speech.
I'll link to my Let's Play of it down below. Got to get a plug in there, mate. Here's one from Bob Mack, and this is not quite political related, but I thought it'd be interesting. What are your thoughts on someone considering a career in the mining industry? I've been putting off looking at a future in the industry. So what advice do you have for someone looking at getting into it?
Look, coal's not going anywhere. Especially, there's many different types of mining. There's all the iron ore and there's zinc and copper, and it just depends what you want to do. it is a great career. It's dangerous, yes. It is well paid. You are well compensated for the danger. Don't go in there if you're accident prone, for God's sakes. But it is it's a great, great career. I'm so glad I did it. I'm forever grateful that I became a plant mechanic, and that's why I ran. I ran so that I could save my industry, and I really believe that I have contributed a great deal in that aspect. But mining's not going away, guys. It's certainly not dead. Get amongst it, get apprenticeship, get into it.
Well, Stu, I think we've been going for an hour, mate. Maybe we'll open up.
Yeah, an hour's good.
One more question, guys. Here we go. Here's a good one.
Yeah. One more.
Enmity. Did Stu get any political training, if that's a thing? So did you get like the One Nation handbook and they went and mentored you, or did they just say, there you go, mate, sort it out?
Look, the head office is in Queensland. They had a person in every seat, I think, in Queensland. So that had a lot to do. They do a screening process that you go through to make sure that you're eligible and there's nothing that you can fail on, where your parents, grandparents are born, all that sort of thing. So there's no sneaky Section 44s that'll get you kicked out. They do that. They have quite a good screening process with One Nation. But on the short answer, no, they don't give you any political training. So a media course probably wouldn't have hurt me in the slightest. But I've winged it. I've got through it. But I did know a lot before I did it. I had a good base of knowledge on a lot of things. But yeah, I think the major parties, they would definitely give some political training to their people, but I would argue that it probably is a detriment a lot of the time, because you can see straight through people that are towing the party line. You
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
they just look like Bill Shorten. They look like they're reading a teleprompter. You know, and I would say that that era of politicians is dead. You know, it's dead. That's why Pauline people gravitate to her, because she's not reading off a teleprompter. She doesn't sound like it either. She's genuine. So is Mark Latham. You know, these are very successful people, and they do make mistakes. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're a human being. You know, people expect, if you expect the politicians to be perfect, you are going to be sorely, sorely disappointed. You narrow the field. You narrow the field to such a minute margin that all you're going to get is lawyers and people that have the training. You know, they've been groomed for it.
Well, that's what worries me about the next generation. Their whole lives are going to be filmed and catalogued, and they'll just be torn apart by someone they did when they were younger, and it's kind of unfair. Okay, G Slim snuck in with a super chat, so I got to ask you this one, and probably because it'll help me with content for another video. He goes, "Hi Stu, I was working with James Hamill in the Vic Senate, or Hallam in Vic Senate. How were your volunteers received at the polling booths? Were there any incidents? So did your lads on the booths have any problems?"
Yeah, I think you look. You get a few snarky comments. You know, that's always. We didn't have any serious incidents. I mean, there was one guy in another area that Pauline said got jumped by 5 other people. You know, they gave him a bit of a flogging. One of the One Nation's trucks got lit on fire. You know, this radical left element is quite violent. But yeah, look, we had no problems. Some of the girls copped a mouthful off one bloke and they got right in their face, you know, which is just not appropriate. Like, these guys are volunteers, you know. Whatever you want to say to this, but just take a sheet or don't take a sheet. There's no need, you know, no need to call a young girl a Nazi. You know, it's just ridiculous. You know, that's something a Nazi would do. You know, it's crazy. It's crazy to think you're a grown man and then you're going to do this to a young lady. Like, but no, there were no serious incidents at all, and nothing that any of them couldn't handle. So.
Well, yeah, you're dealing with country girls, aren't you? You know, you'd hope that
yeah,
they you know, probably
sure.
A Greens voter isn't going to scare them very much, to be honest. I mean, serious.
Yeah, that's right. No, everyone knew. They were all worded up. They knew they would cop a little bit of flack. But look, the Labor Party guys, they copped it. Man, they copped it off the mining guys. They really, those, you know, some of those guys in the high vis, they were not happy about it being offered a Labor sheet that had the Greens as a second preference. I mean, they were furious about it, you know, and so they should have been. I was furious about it too. So, I mean, the Labor guys cops it. The Greens guys, they cop it. Jeez, poor Greens.
Oh, don't worry, mate. You know, I mean, everyone should be polite and respectful to the people handing out the cards. You know.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
It's I did a video actually on some of the car burning and some other stuff yesterday, and a lot of, you know, it's just it's un-Australian. It's not something you think about here in Australia. Well, mate, I'll let you get back to your wife. I know she must, you know, want to have some time with you now that you've been working like a nutcase. Thank you to everyone who has joined us tonight on Facebook, YouTube, and on Periscope. And Stu, keep in touch, mate. Let us know how it all goes. You know, I'll you know, if you get across the line, you got to get you back before you run into Parliament and they eat you up. You know, and we never see you again.
Yeah, you'll know before I do if I get in. I think you'll see helicopters flying into the Hunter Valley. They're looking for me. But look, it's an outside chance, man. But we're hanging in there. So guys, keep tuned.
I think you told me one of your mates put $100 on you or something, and if you win, he's going to get like thousands.
Yeah, well, it's pays. I can't remember, 35 to 1 or something they were, and Fitzgibbon was paying $1.01 You know, so he's Winks, man. He's just, yeah.
Oh, did you
Killed
hear?
it.
Apparently, it was Turnbull's son that bet that $1,000,000 or $700,000 on Labor to win. Did you hear that one?
Really?
Yeah. Oh well, guys. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Stuart, and I'll talk to you later.
Thank you. See you guys.
See you, mate.